Hey everybody, today we are going to be talking about Shortcake Murder by Joanne Fluke. This book is the second book of the Hannah Swenson Mystery with Recipes books, another cozy mystery for you. And I wanted to make the strawberry shortcake recipe since it's the first one that's in here and it's the title of the book. So I already made the cake because it is supposed to chill for 48 hours. So I made that 2 days ago. So we start out with Hannah waking up thinking there's someone in her house, but it's just her cat. So that's how the book starts. And then we find out that she is helping with a bake-off that is being filmed in their town. It's going to be over the course of 4 days. Each day is going to have 3 contestants, and then on the 4th day the 3 winners from the previous nights will come together and they'll have a final winner. And Hannah is one of the judges for this, but she also does a little cooking segment on the news right before the bake-off starts, so kind of like an advertisement, getting people into the mood for watching the bake-off that happens like an hour or so after the news. So the first thing that she makes is the strawberry shortcake. And so she already made the cake 2 hours previous, and then she brings it and she assembles it on camera for the little news segment. And I find it interesting that we find out that Hannah is allergic to strawberries, so she can't even taste her creation on this one, at least not the toppings. But anyways, so I went ahead and I made the cake just like she did. I normally would be very impatient with something like that and would just make it and eat it on the same day, but I thought that I wanted to try to be as authentic as possible with this recipe and do it right, because supposedly the flavors mesh together and they make the cake more dense and just better if you wait the 2 days. So that's why I went ahead and did that. So now I'm going to prepare the topping, which is going to be a creme fraiche and just strawberries chopped up. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So this is going to be like a little bit of a spoiler review. I'm not going to tell you who the murderer is, of course, but I'm going to give some minor spoilers away, being the people that get killed. I don't think I can really avoid telling you that part, so that part's going to be spoiled. Granted though, one of the people that gets killed is like on the back of the book, so if you read the back of the book you already know that anyway, so not much of a spoiler there, I guess. So anyways, first day of the bake-off starts and she shows her cake and everything and it goes really well, and then she gets onto the judging and she starts trying out all of the little desserts that the people have made. And here we find out that one of the judges has to tap out because of like a tooth thing that happened, and so they can't be participating in the judging. And so instead they have Boyd fill in. They just pulled a name from a hat of some city council members, I believe. And so that's who ended up getting it, was Boyd. So Hannah was sitting right next to Boyd, and turns out that he had some of the same thoughts about the food that he was tasting as Hannah did, but he wasn't so nice about it. He was pretty blunt in explaining like how he thought the flavors were off or whatever. So then when they actually judged and told the contestants, he was just as blunt with them and came off kind of rude. And so afterwards Hannah was like, you should probably try to be a little nicer to the contestants. And he was like, why? I'm just telling the truth, telling it how it is. Like, I don't have time to support losers. Or he said something like that, like really dumb. But he is a coach at the school, so I guess bringing in losers versus winners would make sense for a coach to say. So anyways, we have the first night finished and she gets home and she's just about to settle in when she gets a call from Danielle, who is Boyd's wife. And she says, Hannah, you need to come over here right now. So Hannah goes over and says, just look in the garage. And so she goes out there and she's like, what in the heck is going on? And she goes over next to the car, and next to the car is Boyd, whose body is lifeless and head is bashed in with a hammer. So he did, but Danielle didn't want to tell the cops that. She just called Hannah instead. So calls Hannah to confide in her, and then Hannah is the one who ends up calling Mike and Bill to come over and check it out. So Danielle wasn't at the bake-off. She was watching it on TV because she had a pretty bad cold, and so she was taking cold medicine and she was staying at home. And at one point she'd fallen asleep. She was trying to stay up and wait for Boyd, so she just fell asleep on the couch. And then she heard something. I think that's why she woke up. She heard something. She kind of got herself out of bed to check the garage to see, or out of the couch to see if Boyd was home. And she goes in and she sees that his car's there. So she's like, okay, he must be home then. And I want to say the garage wasn't shut or something seemed off. And that's why she went out to double check to see if he was still out there or in the car or something. And that's when she saw his body. And so basically the idea is that she's like the number one suspect. Like, oh, the wife, it's really possible that the wife did it. And so they're looking into seeing if she's the wife, or if she's the killer. And Hannah's like, there's no way that, like, I totally believe her story. I really do not think that she would have ever done that. And so there's a couple of reasons that I won't get into why she seems like she'd be a little more convincing as being the killer, but you can just read about that if you want more info. But she goes to the hospital. They figured it'd be safer for her to just hang there for a while to kind of recover from her cold, as well as not being around the home where her husband was killed. So she's there, and she's not really in much of the story because she's there like the whole time. And so there's still that possibility. They're thinking about if she does just say that she did it, then it can be written off as like self-defense or something, and like she could like be in the clear, I guess. But Hannah's like, she doesn't want to go that route. So she's told to stay out of it, stay out of the investigation and let the cops do their job, which makes sense because you would think that everything that Hannah figures out, she's gonna be able to, the cops and stuff are gonna be able to find that out because that's their job. The detectives will do that. But she really wants to make sure that Danielle doesn't get blamed. And so does it behind Mike's back, who's like the new detective in town that came in on the last book at like the very end. And they're not like dating, but they've been on a couple dates. And so he's like, you need to stay out of this. And she's like, okay, but she said it in a way to where it sounded like she wasn't actually saying she'd stay out of it, but she didn't say that she wouldn't stay out. So she gets a loophole on how she feels like justified and still trying to figure out basically who the killer is. So it's the same as the first book. She finds these like clues by talking to different people, talking to Danielle in the hospital, talking to people that she kind of mentioned. Because of course I'm thinking like, well, why can't the cops just figure all this out on their own? And at the end of the book, Hannah does mention like, well, if she had stayed out of it, there were some things that people told her but they didn't tell the police. And so she kind of had extra information that they didn't give the cops. And because of that, she felt like the investigation eventually would have been solved. The murders would have been solved and everything, but she helped get there quicker. All right, the strawberries are cut and I have put them into a tight container into the fridge so that they can chill while we make the creme fraiche. So there's this reporter slash journalist who writes stories for the local newspaper, I believe, and she is going around trying to get the scoops on all these big stories. She's spending a lot of money, which seems kind of weird. Apparently she got an advance to write this book or something. So Norman, the dentist from the first book, he says something about how she came in and she had a dentist appointment with him, and it was off the books because she has some stuff on him from Seattle when he used to live in Seattle. And so she was trying to use that against him, and unless she got her teeth cleaned and capped and stuff for free. So they go over to see if they can get back that evidence of whatever it is that Norman did and take it back so that she doesn't have that on him anymore, and that maybe that they could find more evidence on other people there. And so they break into her house and they find some stuff, and they're like, yeah, she definitely has a link to the murder based on this evidence stuff that they found. And the thing is, she like is missing for like maybe almost, I don't know, 80 pages or so. And like even just like 20 pages into that, I was like, man, she's totally got to be dead. Like, why would she not be around? Going to her house, and she's late for all these things. She's not showing up to things. Like, it seems pretty obvious that she had to have stepped too far into this blackmail stuff or extortion, whatever, and got herself killed. Like, it has to be the thing. And finally, Hannah, of course, Hannah, always finding the bodies, she finds Lucy's body. So, yes, she was dead. So, anyways, let me grab something real quick so we can assemble this cake. All right, so my video cut out and stopped recording once I started making this, assembling this. So basically what I did was I got the strawberries out, I put them on the top, and then I put the creme fraiche on top of that, and this is the finished product of that. And so things go pretty quickly from there on, and we end up finding out who the killer is and all that, and the book ends. So with this one, I felt like I took a lot longer to figure out who the killer was than the first book. The first book, I was like, it's got to be that person, and I was right. And in this one, I had an idea of who it probably was, and then that was debunked pretty fast, and I knew that that was wrong. And so then after that, I kind of wasn't thinking about it too much, and I wasn't really sure who it could be. And because of this whole Lucy business that we were focused on finding her the whole time. And so by the time that the killer is in the book again, I start to suspect that it's probably that person, and then it turns out that I was right. So it did take me a lot longer this time to figure it out, but I was able to figure it out. So if you really like these kind of books, these cozy mysteries where you don't have to think super hard about it, you can go along with Hannah and figure out things with her, and that makes it really easy to remember the details of everything by just following along with her thought process and everything. And you can make your own ideas and conclusions about like who you think it is, and that's kind of fun. And so I like this one too. I think I liked it a little bit better than the first one because we're already a little established with the town and with Hannah and some of the characters, and this book has more recipes than just cookie recipes. This time the recipes also involve stuff like strawberry shortcake. She's expanding to some desserts in her cookie jar shop, bakery. And so we're getting to experience that as well. So I went ahead and cut a little piece out of this, and I'm going to taste it to see if it turned out well. All right, here's the finished look of it. I can't remember if I mentioned it or not in this take, but it's a pretty thin cake. The batter made 2 cakes, but I cut it in half, so it only made 1 cake, and it was pretty thin on the corners, and then I guess I didn't flatten it enough when I baked it because it's thicker in the middle. But you can see a little bit, the strawberries go first and then the cream's on the top. And I probably didn't do as much strawberries as you're supposed to have. It's probably supposed to be a thicker layer than that, but it's fine. Okay. Yeah, this is really good. So whatever she said about the science behind leaving it for 48 hours and chilling it before you eat it must be true, because this is really good. Yeah. The whipped cream has a little bit of sour cream mixed into it. Yeah, you can tell. If you eat it plain, you can tell that there's a little bit of that like tartness that comes from sour cream. It's definitely in there, but when you eat it all together with the cake and the strawberries, it balances it out, and you really can't tell that it's in there. Because my first bite, I really didn't notice it with everything. So yay, it worked. I didn't mess up anything like I did the first time with the cookies. So yay. I'm definitely gonna go finish this. So yeah, thank you for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.